Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by DieHard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek Podcast number 115. I'm John Davis, and with me in our Studio C today is producer-writer Brian Robinson.
Hello, John.
Our road test producer, Ben Davis.
Hello, hello.
Our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
Our writer, Patrick Lucas.
Hey, hi.
And rounding out a full staff today is a very special guest, the one and only Pat Goss. Pat, welcome.
Hi.
And Pat's going to be here to talk about something special, and he's going to contribute to all of our things we're going to cover today. The biggest thing we're going to cover today is the New York International Auto Show, which we're just back from. We have, as usual, our lightning round, and we have a question that we think will interest a lot of you listening today. But, Pat, I want to kind of hit you first with this. The one big thing that people always ask me is, how do I get to Pat Goss to ask my question about my car problem when I have that problem, not wait for, months for maybe to show up on MotorWeek. And you have a new way that people all over the country, and for that matter all over the world, can get in touch and ask you questions live, and I want you to tell us about it.
Well, John, as you know, we now have a radio show on the Internet. It's a live show every Saturday from 1 to 2 in the afternoon.
On East Coast time.
East Coast time, that's right. And I take calls, and we talk about cars and car problems.
Now, this is just the latest radio endeavor for you. You've been doing radio for, almost as long as I've known you.
Yeah, I've got like 27 years of radio under my belt.
Now, you can never tell that with that wimpy voice of yours. But in the past, those have been primarily regional shows, and now this is actually available to anyone that's got a computer or a smartphone or a tablet. Now, how do they actually listen in?
Well, you simply go to tuneinradio.com, type in Goss or Goss Garage, any configuration of that, and listen live.
Now, TuneIn Radio is a real internet radio site with thousands of stations. I've had the app on my phone for TuneIn Radio for years, but I gather now they've become sort of like an enormous clearinghouse for specialized subjects like car care.
Yeah, they do a good job. They've got quite an array of shows and feed it to all sorts of different outlets.
And when someone is listening to the show on TuneIn, you'll tell them the phone number they can call in and all that, but they can also reach you by Internet, correct?
Yeah, we have a email site for
and you mentioned
the radio show. It's radio@goss-garage.com.
Radio@goss-garage.com.
Yeah.
Okay, and basically, whenever possible, this is also a self-plug. I'm going to be on the show with you as long as you let me, I guess.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Well, I did it for the first time last week and had a great time, and it was great to be back on radio with you again. So thanks very much for asking me.
Yeah, I appreciate the help.
All right, tune in radio every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Goss Garage on the radio. Goss's Garage on the radio. All right, Pat, you stick with us. We want to get your take on anything you might have heard or seen at the 2015 New York International Auto Show. Let's start going around the table. Brian Robinson, what do you think were the big takeaways from this year at New York?
Lots of luxury in the car side and smaller sport utes in the utility side.
There was something for everybody, no doubt.
Yeah. It was a really good car show. There were not nearly as many trucks and SUVs and crossovers. Clearly, New York likes to bill itself now as the luxury car show. And frankly, we all knew that Cadillac was going to show the CT6 to the press for real and the public after seeing it in the Super Bowl. But lo and behold, here comes Lincoln. and they kind of upstaged everybody with the return of the Continental. Impressions. I know you've all seen the pictures of it. Were you, I hate to use the word wowed, but were you surprised? Did you like it? What do you think?
I wasn't super wowed. I did like it, though. The wheels didn't talk to me that much, but the styling is retro enough that it's cool. It would have been cooler if it was a convertible with opposing doors.
Oh, the suicide doors.
I realize most people are upset that they got away from the waterfall grill, but I was kind of glad to see that go. It's been tired looking to me for a long time.
It looks like a K900 grill to me a little bit, though.
K900, Bentley, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in today's podcast. It had almost had shag carpeting on the inside, which got everybody's attention.
That's cool.
Along with lots of metal. But interesting, it's a car that's not particularly aimed at U.S. buyers. It's clear from the design that they're aiming this to make a foothold in the Asian and primarily the Chinese market, where large cars like that, and the doors on the car were quite large, quite long. They like to be chauffeured around, so that's one of the markets they're aiming for.
They nailed it, though.
Can we take a guess as to how much it'll cost?
You know, I don't know. And I've read several things. In one aspect, if they go too high, they're going to alienate U.S. buyers. On the other aspect, if they go too low, no one in the Far East is going to be seen in it. I'm guessing 60s to start, maybe. I don't know. I honestly don't. The other car was the CT6 from Cadillac, their new, and yes, another confusing naming series. I liked it. I thought it looked just what a big Cadillac should look like. It was large without being fat, and that's kind of taking a quote from another journalist that wrote that. And I think it was very successful, very interesting on the inside. In a way, it was kind of sad to see a little bit of their thunder stolen, but on the other aspect, this was a good car show. There were some surprises there.
So, speaking of that interior, I'd seen some pictures of it. It looks like they kind of calmed everything down and simplified the interior of that Cadillac, which I think was a really good idea. And I personally, I would applaud them for that because, it had gotten to the point where it was just really not confusing, but just cluttered. And I think the new one looks really nice and simple, but also upscale at the same time. So,
and that CT6 is a rear drive car where the Continental, by the way, is going to be built, we think, on a front wheel drive and all wheel drive chassis. It'll have all wheel drive standard is the word we've heard. So even though those two cars, a lot of people say compare them, they're really not the same car and they're really not aimed at the same buyer. So. Anything else strike you from the show of note?
The Civic, for sure. Not only is it cool looking,
the Civic concept,
finally, but turbo power in the Honda line is super exciting.
Yeah, they're going to have 2 turbo engines. They're going to have a 1.5 turbo, and then they're bringing back the Type R with a 2-liter.
2-liter turbo.
Yeah, so that's...
And Honda concepts are usually pretty close to what they're going to look like in production, so that should be pretty sweet.
Yeah,
the R especially.
The Honda guys basically said, we always show you headlights that don't quite make production, but basically everything else was it. I did give one comment about the car is that if you look at it on the profile, they've pushed the rear wheel back fairly long way to make rear seat room, but it looks a little heavy there. It's like from the top of the wheel arch to the top of the fender seems a little bit broad, and that was really the only criticism, and a pretty minor one, that I had of the coupe design. They flashed up a picture of the sedan, and it looked nice. The other news of note on that car is they're actually going to have a 5-door hatchback.
Cool.
And they've never had a Civic 5-door hatchback before. And it's made in all places, can be made in England.
They did have that 2-door hatch.
They had the 2-door hatch.
That was cool looking.
It'll be on the market for 2 years, no one will buy it, and then it'll go away.
And then everybody will complain when it's gone.
I don't know. 5-door hatches have caught on a little bit in this country. I mean, we're not a big hatchback country.
Only
with
for
the
the
Focus,
luxury.
Focus RS coming out and stuff.
Yeah.
It's coming back. Yeah, 5-door hatches.
You'll see it.
Golf is a 5-door hatch.
Hey, guys, let's talk about the Chevrolet Malibu.
Well, you know what?
And the Maxima, too.
I was a perfect segue into Focus RS.
Big front-wheel drive cars.
Well, it wasn't new in New York.
All right. Chevrolet Malibu, all new, larger, huge amount of rear seat room. Looks like it, packaging-wise, could be a real player against Camry, Accord, and others. What'd you think of it?
I didn't think it looked that bad. I mean, I didn't look too much inside.
That's a backhanded praise.
It is, because I was never a fan of the Malibu. I don't think I don't think it was a lot of people's favorite car, but I think it looks
only
pretty good.
rental fleets.
I think it looks ready to compete.
What did you think of the front end? Because the body shape is a little bit like the Impala, which everybody acknowledges is a pretty car. The front end still has the split grille, but it's very different. It's
That was
edgy.
very sleek. That was sleek.
You thought it was sleek. I think, you know what I think they've done is I think they've got a generational thing. I thought the front end wasn't very attractive. Everybody that I've talked in the 30-something area thinks that it was edgy and sharp. So they've gone after a little bit different look while keeping it within the family.
I think they had to do that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the Malibu was falling way behind.
Way
People were
behind.
forgetting about it. So they had to do something to at least grab people's attention. And I think it looks pretty good. I'll agree with Patrick.
I think they did a very interesting job with it and a good job. Maxima, once again, they rolled out the four-door sports car moniker. It's a nice-looking car.
I was amazed to see the very familiar design language from the Murano tied over into the Maxima as well.
A lot of it.
I was a big fan of it on the Murano, but I don't know about the family design language going to that extreme.
And they kind of set themselves up for failure, at least for me, by still insisting on calling it the four-door sports car.
I mean, after all, it's front-wheel drive. And
CVT,
and CVT.
There's nothing performance about it, really. I mean, it's got a decent engine, but it instantly makes me not want to like it.
A couple other... Speak right up, Ryan. A couple other cars of note. Kia Optima, all new and basically very evolutionary looking. Nice looking car. They also did Chevrolet back again, did a new Spark, which is a little bit larger with a little bit larger engine. That was the unexpected surprise in the lineup. Porsche Boxster Spyder brought that back. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, glad to see it back. We could always use a better performing Boxster, less weight.
What about the Subaru STI performance concept? The BRZ maybe finally going to get some power.
wanting.
I mean, it's super cool that it was there. Not super cool that it was a concept. That should be greenlit and should be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, they made us look like idiots. Remember our new car preview?
Yeah.
We were teasing that way long
We do
ago.
a pretty good job of that ourselves. We need them to help out.
People interested in electric vehicles, the Lexus RX, new, has a lot of the NX-like front end, but not as radical. I think folks in that market will be okay. I'll tell you one vehicle from Geneva that they had that I really liked is the QX30. I hadn't seen it in person from Infiniti, their smallest, and it's just a concept, so it's going to be their subcompact SUV. That was a sharp-looking vehicle. I mean, it was very highly styled.
That's going to be based on the GLA, right?
Yeah,
I believe
correct.
they share the
So
platform.
it's going to have a lot of Mercedes in it. I thought that was, probably the only real competitor to the Range Rover Evoque that I've seen yet. That was pretty sharp.
Miata's Club Edition too is before the Miata's even out.
That's right.
But I don't think the Club is going to. It means the same as it did before. I think it just replaces touring trim basically, or something like that.
I saw that
It's
it
not a
added
Club racer.
some
badge.
strut racing and stuff, and
which was
a little more performance.
same as the touring trim as before.
It's it seems like we're kind of getting into the situation with the new Miata. It's like they keep talking about it, they keep showing it, and a few people have driven it, but it's like, where is it? So I don't know.
it's like an NSX.
26. Well, they came out with the
Not
price
quite that bad.
26,000 base, more or less. Hey Pat, I know you weren't in New York, but you watch the news every day. Did anything from the New York show stand out to you?
No, not really.
Good answer.
It takes a lot to impress me these days.
You used to have an ML Mercedes, didn't you?
Yes.
So they showed the new GLE. They had already shown the four-door coupe-ish, five-door coupe-ish version. Now they've shown the regular one. Did you take any note of that? Did it look like it was anything just like other than just evolutionary to you?
It looks, to me, it looks mostly evolutionary, although they're incorporating a lot of their new technology and their new interior look. But the outside is, to me, is not dramatically different.
One car that I thought did look dramatically different, but I think was fairly polarizing, is Scion, after years of not having anything new to show, showed up with the IM 5-door, which looks fairly normal and like a Scion should. But they also had a new little sedan called the IA, and I guess they've never had a sedan before. It's got a very aggressive front end. It actually is going to be sold apparently as a Yaris in Canada. Any comments? Did anybody see the photos of it? Because it's kind of like a weird window treatment on the side that kind of goes to a point.
It looked really Japanese domestic market for the U.S. to me. It was cool.
So, I mean, they're not going to sell the Yaris here?
I don't know. That was just something I got from my Canadian counterparts who said it's going to be sold as a Yaris sedan in Canada, but that still leaves it wide open for a Yaris hatchback here. All right, so anyway, the 2015 New York International Auto Show, probably one of the very best, if not the very best, New York show that I've ever been to. That show keeps coming up in stature. It was really, really impressive this year. And I think right now it's easy to say that we have two really big first-class auto shows in this country, Detroit and New York. And, L.A.'s not shabby either. All right, let's move along and let's go to our lightning round. Pat and the panelists, we've got 2 minutes to debate a trending automotive topic. And when time's up, you're going to hear the bell that Patrick Lucas has right in front of him. Okay, another big headline out of New York, and this involves the revival of the Lincoln Continental. Very bold styling, serious luxury car appeal, but not everybody was very pleased with what the Continental looked like. Bentley's chief designer, and I'll probably butcher his name, it's Luc Dokvalk, he called out Lincoln on social media for copying a lot of elements from the Flying Spur. He even went so far as to say something like, if you want, I'll send you the production tooling. There's some similarities, but, what do you think about, one designer carping and talking about another designer copying them, or cars looking the same, or whatever?
Yeah, what design isn't copied off some other design? I mean, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? He should be honored.
There's other brands in there that could have probably said the same thing.
I think this one was particularly hot button because the name Continental is also...
Well, isn't it interesting that Ford owns the name Continental and that Bentley gets to use it with Ford's permission?
Right.
At least so I've been told.
But nowadays... people think Continental, they think Bentley.
Yeah, and because the last Lincoln Continental was, 2002 or thereabouts. However, as someone pointed out to me, if they get Ford too upset, they could challenge Bentley for using the Continental name or take the permission away. It's however it works.
I'm glad they named it Continental instead of like MKV or something crazy. I wish they'd bring Town Car back too. I miss names.
That was the rumor. Before it all happened, the rumor was that this big car was going to be a new Town Car. I was asked about it, and I said, well, they don't really have a chassis for that. And up pops the Continental. So stuff had started to leak out. But, why didn't they complain when the Chrysler borrowed that look for the 300?
Yeah, and Chrysler was even like selling it as a baby Bentley.
Yeah.
They even said that themselves. So I don't know.
And
maybe they're actually threatened.
If I was at Audi, I'd say, every car out there has got that four-door coupe roof line.
And the LED
headlights. And the LED marker
LED
lights and headlights. So I don't know. It seems to me it's like art. If you make a little bit of a change, it's a unique piece. And I really have a hard time with one designer getting too upset because someone thinks their design favors theirs. And after all, is somebody that's considering the Bentley really going to buy the Lincoln? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. But you never know. I don't. Unless it is for I don't know, the Asian market. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both
possibly
really big over there.
All right. Well, Pat, I noticed you were noticeably silent there. What do you think about people copying other people? Never mind.
Well, I think there's a finite number of angles and curves in the universe. So, everything's got to be a copy of something.
Gosh, and we had to get an intellectual response from you, didn't we?
Whoa, dude.
Well, that's it. Thanks, Pat. That was a very good response. See, you should pipe up more often instead of just letting us babble on. All right. Viewer question, or a listener question in this case. Pat, when I was on your radio show you had, this is actually part or taken from a question that you got on the show, and it has to do with the new electric or electronic parking brakes that basically are becoming the norm on cars. Someone asked you about any required maintenance. How do they work? Are there advantages or disadvantages? Before we pipe in, why don't you give us your take on electric parking brakes and what you see in your shop with them?
Well, the number one thing with them, if you have it on your car, use it. Get in the habit of using it every time you get out of the car. Reason being, if you don't use these things, there are parts in them that seize up, and depending on the particular style, they can be outrageously expensive to replace. Some of the calipers are several $100s each, plus labor and a lot of other stuff.
Now, some of the ones you were talking about use an electric motor that's centralized and still pull up on cables like old-style parking brakes.
Right.
And then others, there's actually motors in the calipers?
Yep.
Oh.
And that drives the price way up. Anytime, though, that you have parking brake mechanisms built into the calipers of any type, they tend to get expensive. See, most cars with rear disc brakes use the inside of the rear rotor, and they have shoe-type brakes in there.
Drum-in brakes.
Yeah.
Or drum-in disc, rather.
Those are inexpensive compared to the ones that have the parking mechanism built into the calipers.
As far as the rest of you guys, you like them, you hate them, you would rather see handbrakes back. Do you have any feeling about it at all?
I think I like them personally, and I think it's safer than, let's say, one that's in the footwell. Just as I'd imagine in side impacts, having that brake lever down on the floor, that can't be good.
It's just an extra piece of thing to
just
break your leg
to wind up in my leg. So yeah, I'm all for. If I can't have a handbrake, yeah, definitely give me a electric brake.
I have it in my Audi, which is my personal car, and after I went to the dealership, which was my first mistake, to get my brakes replaced on the front, and they bent me over barrel with the price on that. I thought maybe I should look into doing it myself. And then I read all the stuff about disabling the electronic parking brake, and that was like way beyond my level of expertise. So I was like, I can't do this myself. I have to go in to even work on the brakes. So I don't know. They work well, but I'm scared of it.
On our family,
Don't be afraid, Patrick.
family Subaru Outback, it's a lever up on the left side of the dash, and it sort of mimics the old style ratchet levers, which everybody around this table is probably too young to remember. Except maybe.
Come on now.
Oh, well,
Take the compliment.
Take the compliment where you can get it. Anyway, I'm not crazy about it there. I've gotten used to it in the center console where you would normally have a handbrake. So I guess it's not awful, but somehow I miss, the old-fashioned. I feel like you've lost another bit of control over the car.
I kind of like them, but I would definitely have to get in the habit of using it more often because I've
hardly ever used ours.
Yeah, unless you absolutely need to. I'm kind of in that old school realm,
Yeah.
So that would take me a little to get used to.
Well, okay, everybody. So electric parking brakes are here to stay. Pat, thanks very much for your comments. And once more, tell us how people can tune in for Goss's Garage on the radio every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, it's TuneIn Radio, and then Goss or Goss Garage, and you're there.
And on the show itself, you give all the you frequently mention how to get in touch with you either live or on the internet.
Yeah, on the internet, radio at goss-garage.com or toll-free 844-885-4677.
Very good. Pat, thanks very much for joining us for our podcast today.
I appreciate it. Take care.
You got to do this more often.
Yeah, I like it.
I'd like to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, our podcast producer, Patrick Lucas, who is right here.
Hey.
He's the man with the bell. Assistant producer Greg Carlos, road test producer Ben Davis, Brian Robinson, producer writer. As always, I'm John Davis. Thanks very much for listening, and make sure you catch MotorWeek on public television stations all around the country, and also weekly on Velocity. Till next time, I'm John Davis again. Thanks for listening, watching, and just being with us here on MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.